Hello, and welcome to the video. Today, I wanted to show you how to turn some of your old toys into terrain pieces. I picked up this nice metal truck the other day at a yard sale for 50 cents, and as soon as I saw it, I knew that I could make something out of it. And as you know, recently I've been painting up a lot of Zone War miniatures for the game, and this truck would be, all I saw was this old, rusted, beat up truck down in the dirt, somewhere out in the woods, that it was abandoned and it had been through the apocalypse, and it's going to serve as a great piece of terrain that the characters can hide behind and get a little bit of defense. And so it's about the right size for these guys, but as I said, they're not going to be getting into it or anything like that. They're just going to be using it as to hide around. So with that, let's go ahead and get to work on this thing. So first, I wanted to try to remove this windshield or break it out, but I definitely wanted to keep some of the pieces so that I could glue them back in like it was broken out some way. So here I just took a little screwdriver and I'm just kind of prying it out as best as I can. My first thought was to go ahead and put maybe like where it had been hit and like spider webbed, but the plastic was just too brittle, and as soon as I put any pressure on it, it just shattered, which is fine. I'm just going to keep some of the pieces aside and use it to glue them back in later. Now with this truck, I'm using it for this game, but this type of terrain you can use for any kind of modern type game where, you know, where there's vehicles around. I actually have a futuristic looking jet that I want to maybe make into a 40K piece of terrain. But the main point of this video was to show you how you can turn any of these old toys into really cool looking pieces of terrain. And I don't know about you, but I just have a lot of fun doing terrain pieces. I find it just such a nice break from painting miniatures sometimes, and it just really lets you just kind of run wild with them. And the more that you keep working them, the better they come out looking. It's just a lot of fun. A lot of satisfaction in being like, I built this versus I bought it. I mean, some of the pre-made terrain pieces are fantastic looking, but there's a little bit of a pride thing here where, you know, you make it and you can show it off, and especially when they come out looking really cool, it's just, I don't know, it just adds a little bit of personal touch to these games. Now here you can see that I'm getting really serious about doing some body modifications on this. I don't want to completely demolish this thing, but I do want to bend it up a little bit. I mean, it's been out in the weather, it's been through a couple of bombings, it's been through some gunfire. You know, this thing has definitely seen better days. But again, I don't want to go too crazy with it. I just want to make it look like it's been out in the woods and it's been through some serious stuff. And I gotta say, I had a lot of fun doing the modifications on it because it's just, you know, whatever you feel like doing. Here I was trying to add some bullet holes to like the hood and some other parts on it. The drill bit might have been a little bit big. It looks like it's a healthy caliber that they shot this thing up with. But still, it adds a lot of character to it. Makes it look kind of cool in my opinion. Now after a little extensive body work involving a hammer, I figured that this thing had been through enough, and I was ready to start putting it together now. And here I'm just gluing down some scrap foam pieces that I had on this MDF board. And I just wanted this because I wanted the truck to kind of have a tilt to it. My thinking on this was like maybe somebody was driving this truck a long time ago, running away from whatever they were running from, and sort of crashed it, plowed it into a bunch of earth, and now it's sort of embedded in there at a tilt, at an angle. I thought that would look pretty cool. And that's what's really fun about these pieces, is that you can kind of come up with the backstory all on your own and just think of maybe how this piece came to be. Now to build up around this truck, I was going to use joint compound, but the container I had was all dried out, and I didn't want it to be super heavy. So I thought, what about paper mache? So I got this container, I put some Elmer's glue in it, some water, and then I just used some paper towels, some newspaper, other scraps of paper that I had laying around. After just soaking it in there, letting it get nice, you know, soak up the water and the glue, I just started kind of packing it in underneath the truck to build up the volume some. and then sort of molding it around how I wanted the earth to be sloped up into it. As I said, I kind of picture this truck, it was just driven into a bank somewhere, and now all this earth is just sort of built up around it. And I wasn't sure how this was going to turn out, so this was kind of an experiment. I'd never tried using paper mache, I always used joint compound or something like that. But I figured it's just a piece of terrain, so why not go for it and see what happens. Now, I let this dry overnight and most of the next day out in the hot sun, and it hardened up pretty good. I was pretty happy with it. I mean, there's some ridges in it and some lines, but that's easily covered up with a little bit of dirt and flocking. So now I'm just covering this whole base in glue, and I'm just gonna start dumping this coarse gravel sand mix that I have, and I'm just gonna cover the whole thing with it. And again, this is going to take quite a while to dry to make sure that it really hardens on there and it's going to stay. Once dried, I primed everything black, and I'm going to take an old sponge and some old apple barrel red and start sponge painting this thing. And it comes out, it looks really bright here on camera, but it dries really dull. As this paint, it's not very good. It's not very bright at all once it dries. You know, this is 50-cent Walmart paint, but when it dries, it kind of has a nice, cheap, weathered look to it, if that makes sense. So, and since this is going to be covered up with all kinds of rust and dirt and such, I wasn't too worried about getting a good paint job done. I then grabbed some cheap apple barrel silver, and if you don't know this, their metallic paints are hot garbage. But I didn't really care on this, and the red paint is still wet on this, and again, I didn't care. I just want this to be very dirty, very worn, so I'm just putting a little bit of dabs here and there. I try to get the grill as much as possible, but again, just a little silver here and there just to show that the paint is long gone. Now, I wanted to add some orange to it to show a little bit of rust, but I didn't have any apple barrel orange, so I actually had to use some of my Better Vallejo orange for this. And it went on a little too thick here and there, but it was no problem. I just went and just retouched it up with the red and just went very sparingly with it, because I just wanted it to add a little bit of color to it, but not overdo it too much. But again, all the different colors, the more colors that you put on here, the more natural it's going to look. Like when you look at something out, and especially if it's weathered, there's not just one red tone, there's not one orange tone, it's like a blend of everything. And that's what makes it look even more realistic. And again, I'm not letting anything dry, I'm just going with it, I'm just hitting it wherever I feel like, and it's just sort of all blending together, and the end result looks pretty good. Now, the very last thing I did here for painting was take just a touch of black and just very, very carefully hit it here and there where maybe the orange was a little too bright. Now, all I'm doing here for the base is using this cheap brown paint and just dry brushing over the entire base. And when I did this, I used this brown mostly. I used a little bit of yellow and some grays in here just to mix and match on the gravel. I tried to pick out the rocks more so with the gray, just to make them stand out a little bit, but nothing special. This is just a very quick, easy project here. Now I'm just super gluing some of the broken plastic windshield back in just to add some bits to it. This just adds a little bit of character and a little bit of fun to the piece. And now I'm just going to put down some Elmer's glue where I want to put a little bit of flocking. I don't want this totally covered in the green. I just want it just here and there, sort of spotty looking. And I think in the near future, I might try to make my own flocking with some sawdust that I have. I want different shades of green. I think it looks a lot better whenever you mix it up like that. Right now, all I have is this big jug of green flocking that I've had for years, so I kind of want to mix that up a little bit. So I think in the next project I'm going to try to do that, is make my own flocking with some sawdust. I also decided to add in some old sphagnum moss that I had in a bag. I figured it would just be like some kind of dead vegetation, dead vines or something that's growing up around the truck. So now we're all finished, and I'm pretty happy with how this old truck turned out. It's just what I had envisioned, and I'm happy that I could make it come together. I think it looks really cool in this post-apocalyptic wasteland. I think it fits in well with the theme. These warriors running around here with makeshift armor and such. I think that the truck looks like it's just been through the worst of it, and it makes a really cool piece of terrain. And as I said, this idea, you can use this for anything. If you have some other old vehicles, you can turn them into terrain pieces for your Warhammer games or any other skirmish games that would use vehicles like this. So I hope that this sparks some ideas for you, and maybe you can find some old toys or use some that you have laying around and create some really cool terrain with them. So I hope that you enjoyed watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.